The Federation Council met early the next morning. After much debate, they agreed to give the humans the tour they requested. It seemed harmless enough, and refusing might damage relations with Earth. Veltar divided the humans between different guides. Park Hyun would tour the government facilities with him. Kim Nari would visit military installations with Admiral Thexy. Lee Dong would meet with trade leaders across the station. Choi Ara would work with Dr. Quinal in the science labs. They thought this would limit how much each human could learn. They were wrong. Kim Nari walked through the military sector beside Admiral Thexy. The Brutani warrior was proud of his forces and eager to show them off. The human woman listened carefully to everything he said, asking questions that seemed innocent but were actually very specific. "How many soldiers do you have stationed here?" she asked while watching a training exercise. 2,000 of our finest warriors," Admiral Thexy replied proudly. Kim Nari nodded and made a note on her tablet. "And how often do they rotate to other positions?" "Every 6 months. It keeps them sharp and prevents them from getting too comfortable." "Smart thinking," Kim Nari said. "What about your response time when there is an emergency?" 3 minutes to full battle readiness, the Admiral boasted. "The fastest in the Federation?" Kim Nari smiled. "Very impressive. And your communication systems during combat?" Admiral Thexy explained their military communication network in detail. He thought he was impressing a potential ally. Kim Nari was actually learning exactly how to disrupt their entire defense system. They visited the weapons storage area. Kim Nari examined the plasma rifles and energy shields with professional interest. "Excellent craftsmanship," she said. "How much ammunition do you keep on hand?" "Enough for a 6-month siege," Admiral Thexy replied. "And where do you manufacture more when you run out?" The Admiral pointed to a map showing 3 factory worlds. "These facilities produce all our military equipment." Kim Nari memorized the locations instantly. She was already thinking about how easily those factories could be captured or destroyed. "Your defenses are very traditional," she observed while studying the shield generators. "Have you considered upgrading to more modern systems?" "These have worked for centuries," Admiral Thexy said. "Why change something that is not broken?" "Of course," Kim Nari replied, "though I did notice a few inefficiencies that might be worth addressing." "What kind of inefficiencies?" the Admiral asked with interest. Kim Nari began pointing out what she called weak points in coverage and potential vulnerabilities. The Admiral thought she was being helpful. She was actually creating a detailed attack plan. Meanwhile, Lee Dong was meeting with the leaders of various trade organizations. His friendly manner put everyone at ease as he asked about their business operations. "Tell me about your supply chains," he said to Merchant Prince Zalok of the Traders Guild. "How do you move goods between systems?" Zalok was happy to explain. The slug-like alien pulled up holographic maps showing all the major trade routes. "These paths have been used for thousands of years," he said proudly. "Very safe and efficient." Lee Dong studied the maps carefully, his smile never fading. "And who controls access to these routes?" "Different species control different sections," Zalok explained. "We have agreements with all of them." "How interesting," Lee Dong said. "What happens if one of these controlling species decides to raise their fees?" "We negotiate," Zalok replied. "Sometimes we find alternative routes." Lee Dong made notes about every bottleneck, every control point, and every alternative path. He was learning exactly how to strangle the Federation's economy. "What about your most valuable trade goods?" he asked. "Where do they come from?" Zalok showed him mining operations, agricultural worlds, and manufacturing centers. Each location went into Lee Dong's files, along with details about production capacity and security. "You have built a very successful network," Lee Dong said, admiringly. "Have you ever had problems with pirates or raiders?" "Sometimes," Zalok admitted, "but our security forces usually handle them quickly." "And if a threat was too big for your security forces?" "The Federation military would step in," Zalok said confidently. Lee Dong nodded thoughtfully. He was already planning how to separate the military from the trade routes, leaving both vulnerable. In the science sector, Choi Ara was having her own educational tour with Dr. Quinal. The alien scientist was excited to share her knowledge with someone who seemed genuinely interested. "This is our main computer core," Dr. Quinhal said proudly, her jellyfish body glowing brighter. "It controls everything on the station." Choi Ara examined the system with great interest. "Fascinating architecture," she said. "Very stable design. How do you handle security updates?" "We update the system once every 5 years," Dr. Quinal replied. "More frequent changes might cause instability." Choi Ara tried to hide her amazement. Their computer security was decades out of date. "And backup systems?" she asked. 3 redundant cores in different sections of the station, Dr. Quinal explained, showing her the locations. Choi Ara memorized everything. She could probably take control of the entire station's computer system in less than an hour. "Your faster-than-light communication system is quite impressive," Choi Ara said, examining another device. "Thank you," Dr. Quinal beamed. "We can send messages across the galaxy in just 3 days." 3 days? Choi Ara asked, genuinely surprised. "Yes, is that not fast?" Dr. Quinal asked, suddenly worried. "Oh, very fast," Choi Ara lied smoothly. "Human systems could do the same thing in 3 hours." "How do you encrypt these messages?" Dr. Quinal explained their encryption methods in detail. Choi Ara recognized the algorithm immediately. Humans had stopped using it 20 years ago because it was too easy to break. "And your manufacturing capabilities?" Choi Ara asked. Dr. Quinal gave her a complete tour of their production facilities. Choi Ara saw outdated machinery, inefficient processes, and security systems that were practically non-existent. "We produce everything we need right here," Dr. Quinal said proudly. "Self-sufficiency is admirable," Choi Ara replied while calculating how quickly human technology could shut down every factory she had seen. Back in the government sector, Park Hyun was learning about Federation politics from Veltar. The colony official was being careful not to reveal too much, but Park Hyun's questions were very skillful. "How does the council make decisions?" Park Hyun asked as they walked through the administration levels. "We vote on all major issues," Veltar explained. "Every member species has an equal voice." "Very democratic," Park Hyun said approvingly. "What happens when there is disagreement?" "We debate until we reach consensus," Veltar replied. "And how long does that usually take?" "Sometimes months," Veltar admitted, "but it ensures everyone is satisfied with the result." Park Hyun nodded thoughtfully. "A government that took months to make decisions would be helpless against a fast-moving crisis." "Who handles emergency situations when there is no time for debate?" he asked. "The council chairman has limited emergency powers," Veltar said. "But they must get approval within 1 week or their decisions are reversed." Park Hyun made a note. 1 week was more than enough time to take control of everything that mattered. "What about your military command structure?" Park Hyun asked. "How? Do they coordinate with civilian authorities?" Veltar explained the complex system of checks and balances that prevented any single person or group from having too much power. Park Hyun listened with great interest, identifying every weakness and delay built into their system. "Very thoughtful design," he said. "Your founders clearly wanted to prevent any possibility of tyranny." "Exactly," Veltar said proudly. "No one can move quickly enough to seize control before the safeguards stop them." "Unless they understood the system well enough to work within it," Park Hyun observed. "That would require years of study and perfect timing." Veltar laughed. "Impossible for an outsider." Park Hyun smiled. "I suppose you are right," but he was already planning exactly how to do it. As the day ended, the 4 humans met back at their ship. To any observer, they looked like tired tourists comparing notes about their educational tours. "Interesting defensive setup," Kim Nari said quietly in Korean. Third-generation thinking applied to fourth-generation problems. "Their economy runs on 1,000-year-old assumptions," Lee Dong replied in the same language. "Very predictable vulnerabilities." "I could take control of their entire technology base in less than a day," Choi Ara added. "They are using systems we abandoned decades ago." Park Hyun nodded. and their government is designed to prevent exactly the kind of rapid action needed to respond to a coordinated threat. So what is our recommendation? Kim Nari asked. Park Hyun looked out at the Federation station through their ship's window. Thousands of aliens went about their daily business, completely unaware of what the humans had learned about them. Full market penetration is viable, he said finally. Low risk, high reward scenario. Timeline estimate 6 months for complete integration. Resource requirements? Lee Dong asked. Minimal, Park Hyun replied. They will provide most of what we need themselves. 6 months after the score crisis, Veltar barely recognized his own civilization. The changes had started small and seemed helpful at first. Now he was beginning to understand what the humans had really done to them. It began with the partnership agreement. After weeks of debate, the Federation Council had signed it. They felt they had no choice. The humans had saved them from the Score Empire, and the terms seemed reasonable when explained properly. Just some administrative efficiency improvements, Park Hyun had assured them. Standard organizational optimization procedures. The first change was the arrival of more human ships. Lots more. They came in groups carrying teams of specialists with business cards and professional smiles. Regional development coordinators, their leader explained when Veltar asked about them. We are here to help implement the efficiency improvements outlined in our partnership agreement. The humans spread throughout Federation space like a carefully planned infection. They did not conquer planets or destroy cities. Instead, they opened offices, scheduled meetings, and began what they called process improvement initiatives. Jiang Wu arrived at the agricultural world of Kelros Prime as an environmental solutions specialist. The Kalani farmers had been growing food there for thousands of years using traditional methods that worked perfectly well. Within 2 months, Jiang Wu had convinced them to adopt optimized growing techniques that tripled their crop yields. He also helped them sign contracts with human distribution companies that would handle all their food exports. Much more efficient than your old system, Jiang Wu explained to the grateful farmers. We handle all the complex logistics, and you just focus on growing food. What the farmers did not realize was that the human distribution companies now controlled their entire food supply. If the humans ever stopped picking up crops, Kelros Prime would starve within weeks. Song Haye appeared on the industrial world of Makanis as a human resources director. The robotic beings who ran the factories there were impressed by her detailed knowledge of their production processes. I can see several opportunities to improve worker satisfaction and operational efficiency, she told the factory managers during her first presentation. Song Hai introduced new performance metrics and quality standards that seemed designed to help the workers. What they actually did was give human supervisors the authority to reorganize the entire industrial system. Soon, human efficiency experts were embedded in every major factory on Mekanis. They made small changes to production schedules, supply, orders, and quality control procedures. Each change seemed minor and helpful. The result was that human companies gradually became essential to keeping the factories running. The robotic beings found themselves dependent on human expertise for everything from raw materials to spare parts. Beijun took a different approach as market expansion coordinator in the Traders Guild. Instead of changing how the aliens did business, he simply offered better alternatives. Why use those expensive shipping routes when we can provide the same service for half the cost? He asked Merchant Prince Zalok during a friendly lunch meeting. Your routes are faster and cheaper? Zalok asked with interest. Much better, Beijun replied, showing detailed comparison charts. Our logistics network is designed for maximum efficiency. Soon, most of the Federation's trade was flowing through human shipping companies. The old routes were abandoned as uneconomical. What the aliens did not understand was that the humans had deliberately underpriced their services to drive out competition. Once they controlled the shipping, they could charge whatever they wanted. But by then, it would be too late for the Federation to go back to their old systems. Dr. Quinall was among the first to realize what was happening. She had been working with human technology consultants to upgrade the Federation's computer systems. These improvements are remarkable, she told Veltar during a private meeting. Human technology is decades ahead of ours, but I am starting to notice some concerning patterns. What kind of patterns? Veltar asked. The new systems require human maintenance, Dr. Quinal explained. Our technicians cannot understand the advanced programming. If the humans ever stopped providing support, our entire technology base would collapse. Veltar felt a chill of understanding. They are making us dependent on them. That is not the worst part, Dr. Quinal continued. The new systems have capabilities that we did not request. They can monitor all our communications, track our movements, and access our most sensitive information. Are they spying on us? I do not think they consider it spying, Dr. Quinal replied thoughtfully. When I asked about the monitoring capabilities, they said it was for quality assurance and performance optimization. I believe they genuinely see it as helpful. Admiral Thexy had his own concerns about the human security consultants, who were now embedded in every Federation military unit. They called themselves tactical advisors and claimed to be sharing human expertise to improve defensive capabilities. They know everything about our military operations, he reported to Veltar. Troop positions, weapon capabilities, strategic plans. They say it is necessary for coordination, but it means we have no secrets from them. Are they planning to attack us? Veltar asked. I do not think so, Admiral Thexy replied, his scales showing deep confusion. They seem genuinely interested in making our military more effective, but their improvements always require more human involvement. How so? The new weapons they provided need human ammunition. The upgraded communication systems require human encryption codes. The improved tactical software needs human technicians to maintain it. Veltar was beginning to see the pattern. If we ever wanted to fight against them, we could not use our own military. Worse than that, Admiral Thexy said grimly. I think they could shut down our entire defense system remotely if they wanted to. The most disturbing reports came from Federation worlds that had signed development contracts with various human corporations. These were supposed to be economic partnerships that would bring prosperity to underdeveloped planets. The humans were keeping their promises. Worlds that signed development contracts were indeed becoming more prosperous, but they were also becoming fundamentally different places. On Verdant, a forest world inhabited by tree-dwelling beings, human, environmental, engineers had introduced new industrial techniques that allowed sustainable logging without damaging the ecosystem. Production increased tenfold, and the tree dwellers were earning more money than ever before. But the new techniques required constant human supervision. The machinery was too complex for the tree dwellers to operate alone. The chemical processes needed human expertise to remain stable. Even the accounting systems required human financial advisors to prevent mistakes. Within months, Verdant had transformed from a self-sufficient agricultural world into a human-managed industrial operation. The tree dwellers were still living there, and they were better fed and housed than before, but they were no longer in control of their own planet. Similar transformations were happening across Federation space. Every world that accepted human help became more prosperous and more dependent. The humans were not stealing resources or enslaving populations. They were making themselves indispensable. Veltar called an emergency meeting of the Federation Council to discuss what was happening. When the representatives gathered, he was shocked to see human advisors sitting beside many of them. Why are humans present at this confidential meeting? He demanded. They are our consultants, replied Representative Mordak of the Crystal Collective. We need their expertise to understand the complex issues we are discussing. This meeting is about the humans themselves, Veltar protested. Which is why their input is so valuable, Mordak replied reasonably. Who better to explain human policies than humans themselves? The human advisors smiled politely and activated their recording devices. We are here to provide clarification and answer any questions about our partnership programs, one of them said. Veltar realized with growing horror that the Federation Council could no longer meet privately. The humans were already inside every level of their government. He tried to explain his concerns to the other representatives, but many of them seemed confused by his objections. The humans have brought nothing but improvements, said Representative Quillex of the Mining Consortium. Our production is up 300% since we signed our development contract. And what happens if they leave? Veltar asked. Why? Would they leave? Quillex replied, genuinely puzzled. We have an excellent partnership. But could you maintain your current production without them? Quillex hesitated for the first time. Well, no. But that is not a concern because they are committed to our long-term success. Dr. Quinal tried to support Veltar's position. We are becoming entirely dependent on human technology and expertise, she said. This makes us vulnerable. Vulnerable to what? Asked Representative Zephin of the Transport Guild. The humans saved us from the Score Empire. They have brought prosperity to our worlds. They have improved our lives in every way. But at what cost? Veltar asked. The human advisor in the room stood up with a friendly smile. Perhaps I can address these concerns, he said. My name is O-Min, and I am the Galactic Operations Director for our partnership programs. 3 weeks after the humans' visit, emergency sirens wailed across Federation space. The Score Empire had launched a massive invasion fleet toward the Federation's outer colonies. This was the crisis everyone had feared for decades. The Score were different from other species in the galaxy. They were aggressive, militaristic, and had been slowly expanding their territory for centuries. Unlike the peaceful Federation, they solved problems with violence and conquest. Veltar stood in the emergency command center, watching the tactical displays with growing horror. Red symbols showed Score warships moving toward Federation worlds. There were hundreds of them. How long do we have? He asked Admiral Thexy. 2 weeks before they reach our first colonies, the Admiral replied, his scales dark with worry. Maybe 3 if we are lucky. Can we stop them? Admiral Thexy was quiet for a long moment. Our military is designed for defense, not major warfare. The Score have twice our numbers and better weapons. Dr. Quinal floated nearby, her glow very dim. Perhaps we should try diplomacy. Offer them something they want instead of fighting. The Score do not negotiate, Admiral Thexy said grimly. They take what they want. Veltar felt helpless. The Federation had been peaceful for so long that they were unprepared for real war. Their military was small, their weapons outdated, and their leaders had no experience with serious conflict. What about asking for help? Dr. Quinal suggested. Other species in the galaxy might assist us. Most are too weak or too far away, Admiral Thexy replied. By the time help arrives, the Score will control half our territory. Veltar was about to respond when his communication device chimed. A message from the humans had arrived. What do they want? Admiral Thexy asked suspiciously. He had not been comfortable with the humans since their visit. Veltar read the message aloud. We have heard about your current difficulties with the Score Empire. Titan Industries would like to offer consulting services to help resolve this situation. Consulting services? Dr. Quinal asked, confused. We need military assistance, not business advice. Perhaps we should hear what they have to say, Veltar suggested. We need all the help we can get. An hour later, Park Hyun appeared on the main communication screen. He was sitting in what looked like a corporate boardroom wearing the same expensive suit as before. Good afternoon, he said with his usual calm smile. We understand you are facing some challenges with aggressive competitors. The Score Empire is about to invade our territory, Veltar said urgently. This is not a business problem. All problems are business problems, Park Hyun replied matter-of-factly. The Score Empire is simply an organization with expansion goals that conflict with your market position. This is a standard competitive situation. Admiral Thexy's scales turned red with anger. This is war, not commerce. The same principles apply, Park Hyun said calmly. Would you like to hear our proposal? Veltar gestured for the Admiral to stay quiet. What kind of proposal? Park Hyun's image was replaced by charts and graphs. We have analyzed the Score Empire's operational structure, supply chains, and strategic vulnerabilities. Titan Industries can provide comprehensive solutions to neutralize their competitive threat. You want to fight the Score? Dr. Quinal asked in amazement. Not fight, Park Hyun corrected. We prefer more efficient methods. Our approach focuses on disrupting their operational capacity while minimizing direct conflict. Lee Dong appeared on another part of the screen. The Score Empire's expansion is unsustainable from a resource management perspective. They have overextended their supply lines and created multiple critical dependencies. Kim Nari joined the conversation. Their military doctrine is based on overwhelming force, but they have not adapted to modern asymmetric warfare techniques. Very predictable response patterns. Choi Ara added her analysis. Their technology base is impressive but inflexible. They rely heavily on centralized control systems that can be exploited. Veltar looked at his colleagues in confusion. The humans were talking about the galaxy's most feared empire like it was a business competitor with poor management. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. Complete market disruption, Park Hyun replied. We will eliminate the Score threat to your organization within 6 weeks. In exchange, we would like to formalize our partnership with the Federation. Partnership? Admiral Thexy asked suspiciously. Park Hyun smiled. Nothing dramatic, just some administrative agreements about resource sharing, operational coordination, and strategic planning. Standard partnership documentation. Lee Dong held up a thick document. We have prepared a preliminary agreement outlining the terms of our cooperation. Veltar felt desperate. The Federation's military could not stop the Score invasion. If the humans could somehow help, perhaps the partnership terms were worth considering. Can you really stop the Score Empire? He asked. Absolutely, Park Hyun replied with complete confidence. We have handled similar situations before. When? Dr. Quinal asked. Corporate restructuring projects on Earth, Kim Nari explained. Large organizations with inefficient management and overextended operations. Same basic principles. Veltar made his decision. If you can stop the Score invasion, we will consider your partnership proposal. Excellent, Park Hyun said. We will begin implementation immediately. Please forward all your military intelligence about Score positions and movements. We will need complete access to your communication networks and defense systems for coordination purposes. Admiral Thexy started to object, but Veltar silenced him. They were out of options. Over the next week, more human ships arrived in Federation space. They were not warships, but they carried teams of specialists with titles like Supply Chain Analyst, Systems Integration Manager, and Competitive Intelligence Coordinator. The humans began their campaign against the Score Empire with tactics that confused everyone who watched. Lee Dong led the first phase, which he called supply chain disruption. Instead of attacking Score warships directly, his team targeted the fuel depots, ammunition factories, and food production centers that kept the Score military running. The attacks were not dramatic space battles. Small human ships would approach, Score supply stations dock normally, and then somehow convince the alien workers to shut down their own facilities. How are they doing that? Admiral Thexy asked in amazement as another Score supply depot went offline. Economic incentives, Lee Dong explained when asked. We offered the workers better employment opportunities with improved benefits packages. Most were happy to change jobs. You bribed them? Dr. Quinal asked. We made competitive offers for their services, Lee Dong corrected. Standard recruitment procedures. Kim Nari's team was working on what she called operational efficiency improvements. Score military bases would suddenly experience equipment malfunctions, communication breakdowns, and mysterious supply shortages. Are you sabotaging their facilities? Admiral Thexy demanded. We are identifying and correcting inefficiencies in their operational systems, Kim Nari replied seriously. Poor maintenance schedules, inadequate security protocols, suboptimal resource allocation. We are helping them understand these problems. By breaking their equipment? By demonstrating the consequences of inadequate system management, Kim Nari clarified. Choi Ara was implementing what she called network optimization. Score communications began carrying human messages instead of Score orders. Their navigation systems started directing ships to Federation facilities instead of their intended targets. You are hacking their computers, Dr. Quinall observed. We are providing technology consulting services, Choyara explained. Their systems were very outdated and vulnerable. We are helping them upgrade to more secure configurations. Without their permission? They never asked us to stop, Choyara pointed out. If they wanted us to stop, they just need to submit a formal request. The Score Empire's invasion began to collapse in ways no one had ever seen before. Their supply ships arrived empty. Their weapons stopped working at crucial moments. Their orders were replaced by human messages offering career, transition assistance, and voluntary relocation programs. Score commanders found themselves receiving communications from their own subordinates, asking about pension plans and health insurance benefits. Entire Score military units began abandoning their posts to take jobs with human consulting firms. Within 3 weeks, the massive Score invasion fleet was scattered, confused, and largely unemployed. Most of the soldiers had been recruited by human companies. The remaining ships were stranded without fuel, supplies, or clear orders. The Score government sent desperate messages demanding to know what was happening to their military. The humans responded with offers to provide organizational restructuring services and change management consulting. We have successfully resolved your competitive situation, Park Hyun announced to the Federation Council. The Score Empire is no longer a threat to your operations. Veltar could hardly believe it. The galaxy's most feared military force had been destroyed without a single major battle. How did you do it? Standard corporate restructuring techniques, Park Hyun replied. We identified inefficiencies in their organizational structure and helped their personnel transition to more suitable employment opportunities. Veltar stood in the main meeting hall of Station Prime, watching the stars through the huge windows. The Galactic Trade Federation had sent out another invitation 3 months ago. A new species from a small planet called Earth had finally answered. Today they would arrive for their first meeting. Veltar had done this many times before. New species always followed the same pattern. They would come in old ships, asking for help and protection. They would beg for food, medicine, and basic technology. Most were afraid of the bigger, stronger races in the galaxy. Some cried during their first meeting. The Kalani official adjusted his green robes and checked the welcome gifts. There were medical supplies, food packages, and basic star maps. Everything a new species would need to survive in the galaxy. Veltar had prepared a kind speech about friendship and cooperation. Admiral Thexy of the Brutani warrior caste walked into the hall. His 4 arms carried weapons as always. The reptilian creature's scales were dark red today, showing he was relaxed. Another weak species coming to ask for help? He asked with a laugh. Most likely, Veltar replied. The reports say they are a young race. They only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They probably need everything. Dr. Quinall floated nearby, her jellyfish-like body glowing softly. As the head scientist of the Federation, she had studied the basic information about humans. Interesting biology, she said in her musical voice. They are mammals. They eat both plants and meat. Very primitive compared to us. The 3 representatives waited as other Federation members arrived. There were tall, thin beings from the crystal worlds, short, round creatures from the gas giant moons. Everyone expected the same thing they had seen hundreds of times before. Soft chime filled the air. Incoming ship from Sol system, announced the station's computer voice. Veltar walked to the window and looked out. His mouth opened in surprise. The ship approaching was not old or broken. It was sleek and new, with smooth lines and perfect white paint. Large letters on the side read, Titan Industries, Expanding Horizons. That is not what I expected, Admiral Thexy said, moving closer to the window. The ship docked with perfect precision. No bumps or mistakes. Most new species crashed into the station at least once during their first visit. This ship moved like it had been here many times before. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 4 humans walked out in a perfect line. They wore identical dark blue suits that looked expensive and well-made. Each carried a black briefcase. Their shoes clicked on the metal floor as they walked. The human in front was tall with black hair. He smiled as he approached the waiting aliens. "Good morning," he said in perfect Federation standard language. "I am Park Hyun, Chief Executive Officer of Titan Industries. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting." Veltar blinked several times. This was not how new species usually acted. Where was the fear? Where were the requests for help? Park Hyun gestured to the other humans. "This is Kim Nari, our Chief Security Officer." The woman nodded once. She had short hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Lee Dong, our Head of Acquisitions." The man smiled, but something about it made Veltar uncomfortable. "And Choyara, our Chief Technology Officer." The woman looked at all the aliens with great interest, like she was studying them. "Welcome to the Galactic Trade Federation," Veltar said, trying to recover from his surprise. "We have prepared gifts for your people. Medical supplies, food, basic technology to help you." "That is very kind," Park Hyun interrupted politely. "But we are not here to ask for help. We are here to learn about business opportunities." The Federation representatives looked at each other in confusion. "Business opportunities?" Dr. Quinal asked. "Of course," Park Hyun said, opening his briefcase. He pulled out a small device that projected charts and graphs into the air. "We have studied your Federation from a distance. Very impressive growth over the past 1,000 years. We would like to understand your market structure better." Lee Dong stepped forward, his smile growing wider. "We are particularly interested in trade routes, resource distribution, and areas with potential for expansion." Kim Nari was looking around the station with professional interest. She seemed to be memorizing the layout, the security positions, and the weapon placements. "Impressive defensive setup," she said to Admiral Thexy. "Who designed your security systems?" We did," the Admiral replied, confused by her tone. "Interesting approach," Kim Nari said, making notes on a small tablet. "Very traditional." Choi Ara had walked over to examine the station's computer displays. "Fascinating technology," she said to Dr. Quinal. "How old is your current system?" "About 200 years," the scientist replied proudly. "It was very advanced when we built it." "I see," Choi Ara said, though her expression suggested she was not impressed. "And you're faster than light drives? What generation are you using, Doctor?" Quinal puffed up with pride. "Third-generation quantum fold drives, the most advanced in the galaxy." "How interesting," Choi Ara said, making more notes. "We use 7th-generation drives, but perhaps there are things we can learn from your classic approach." Veltar felt more confused by the minute. These humans were not acting like any new species he had ever met. They were not asking for help or protection. Instead, they were asking questions that made him uncomfortable. Park Hyun continued showing his charts. "We have brought detailed analyses of galactic trade patterns, resource flows, and economic indicators. We would very much like to schedule meetings with your trade consortium leaders." "Why?" Veltar asked. "Market research," Park Hyun replied, as if this was obvious. "Before entering any new market, Titan Industries conducts thorough research. We need to understand the competitive landscape, identify potential partnerships, and assess growth opportunities." The way he said competitive landscape made several aliens shift nervously. "We are not a market," Admiral Thexy said, his scales turning yellow with irritation. "We are a peaceful alliance of species working together." "Of course," Lee Dong said, his smile never changing. "And what a successful alliance it is. We would love to learn about your management structure. Who makes the decisions? How are resources allocated? What happens when members disagree?" "These are not the usual questions from new species," Dr. Quinal said suspiciously. Choi Ara looked up from the computer display she was studying. "Perhaps that is because we are not the usual new species." The humans exchanged glances that seemed to communicate something the aliens could not understand. Park Hyun closed his briefcase and smiled warmly. "We would like to propose a cultural exchange program. Our team would very much enjoy touring your key facilities, meeting your leaders, and learning about your operations. For what purpose? Veltar asked. Understanding, Park Hyun replied. How can we work together effectively if we do not understand each other's capabilities and methods? Kim Nari stepped forward. We would be particularly interested in seeing your military installations, defensive strategies, and security protocols. For mutual protection, of course. Lee Dong nodded enthusiastically. And your trade networks, supply chains, and resource management systems. Very educational. Choi Ara added. Your technology centers, research facilities, and manufacturing capabilities would be fascinating to study. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. The requests sounded reasonable, but something felt wrong. These humans were too confident, too prepared, too interested in things that most species ignored. We will consider your request, Veltar said carefully. Excellent, Park Hyun replied. While you decide, perhaps you could provide us with some basic information? Federation membership lists, trade volume statistics, military strength assessments, just for our files, you understand. Why would you need military information? Admiral Thexy demanded. Park Hyun looked genuinely surprised by the question. Risk assessment, naturally. Any responsible organization needs to understand the security environment before making investments. Investments? Dr. Quinal asked. In our partnership, of course, Lee Dong said, his smile becoming even more unsettling. We are very interested in long-term relationships with growing organizations like yours. The humans gathered their briefcases and prepared to leave. Park Hyun handed Veltar a small card. Our contact information, he explained. We look forward to hearing from you soon. As the humans walked back to their ship, they spoke quietly among themselves in their own language. Though the words were foreign, their tone sounded like people making plans. After the humans left, the Federation representatives stood in uncomfortable silence. That was not normal, Admiral Thexy said finally. No, Veltar agreed. It was not. Doctor, Quinal's glow had dimmed considerably. Did anyone else feel like we were being studied rather than meeting new friends? Yes, Veltar replied, looking at the card Park Hyun had given him. It was made of some material he did not recognize, and the printing was perfect. Too perfect for a species that was supposed to be primitive. Should we give them the tour they requested? Admiral Thexy asked. Veltar considered this. Every instinct told him to refuse, but the Federation's laws required them to be welcoming to new species, and these humans had not actually asked for anything unreasonable. I suppose we must, he said reluctantly. But I want security watching them at all times. Agreed, the Admiral replied. There is something, AB. 1 year after first contact, Park Hyun stood before the Federation Council in what was still officially called the same meeting hall. But everything else had changed, including the people sitting in it. Half the seats were now occupied by humans, with titles like Integration Specialist and Cultural Liaison Officer. The other half held alien representatives who had adapted to what everyone politely called the new partnership model. Veltar was still there, though his role had been redefined as traditional governance consultant. He spent most of his time explaining old Federation customs to human administrators who were designing more efficient systems. Park Hyun activated his presentation with the casual confidence of someone addressing his own employees, which, in many ways, he was. Thank you all for attending today's quarterly review, he began. I am pleased to report that the Galactic Trade Federation has exceeded all performance targets for the past year. The statistics were impressive. Trade volume had increased by 400%. Military efficiency was up by 600%. Technological advancement had accelerated by decades. Quality of life measurements showed improvement across all Federation worlds. These results demonstrate the success of our integrated management approach, Park Hyun continued. By combining human organizational expertise with local cultural knowledge, we have created a more prosperous and stable civilization for everyone. Dr. Quinn Al, now serving as Scientific Advisory Coordinator, raised one tentacle. The improvements are undeniable, she said carefully, but I think some of our people are still confused about how the partnership actually works. An excellent point, Park Hyun replied. Perhaps it is time we provided complete transparency about our organizational structure. He gestured to Kim Nari, who had been promoted to Security Integration Director. She stood and addressed the room with the same professional manner she had always used. When we first arrived, many of you assumed we were diplomats or explorers. Kim Nari said, "This was a natural mistake. Most species develop space travel for those purposes." She activated her own presentation showing images of human space expansion over the past century. Humanity developed faster than light travel for a different reason. We had optimized Earth's resources to maximum efficiency and needed new markets to sustain growth. Admiral Thexey, now called Defense Coordination Advisor, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Are you saying you came here to invade us?" "Invade is such a crude term," Lee Dong replied from his position as Economic Development Director. "We came here to expand our operations. There is a significant difference." Choi Ara, now the Technology Integration Manager, stood to explain. "Human civilization evolved differently from yours. Where you developed cooperation and consensus building, we developed competition and optimization." She showed brain scans and genetic analyses on her display. "These are not just cultural differences. They are biological adaptations. What you call our business instincts are actually evolved hunting behaviors." The alien representatives looked at each other with growing understanding and alarm. "Our competitive drive is territorial dominance programming," Park Hyun continued calmly. "Our innovation capabilities are rapid adaptation mechanisms designed to eliminate threats and exploit opportunities. And our networking skills," Lee Dong added with his characteristic smile, "are complex social predation strategies that allow us to infiltrate and control other organizational structures." Veltar felt his blood turn cold. "You are saying that humans are evolutionarily designed to do what you have done to us?" "Exactly," Park Hyun replied, seeming pleased that someone understood. "Every human professional specialization is actually an adaptation for organizational predation." Kim Nari returned to the presentation. "What you perceived as military expertise was actually pack hunting coordination. Our security assessments were territorial mapping exercises. Our economic analysis was resource identification and acquisition planning," Lee Dong explained. "We were not studying your trade systems to participate in them. We were studying them to control them." Choi Ara nodded. "And our technology consulting was not meant to help you upgrade your systems. It was meant to make your systems dependent on ours." The room was silent except for the quiet humming of human-designed air recycling systems and the soft clicking of human-built computer interfaces. Dr. Quinal's glow had dimmed to almost nothing. "So everything you did was planned from the beginning?" "Of course," Park Hyun replied, sounding surprised by the question. "Did you think we were making it up as we went along? We had complete operational plans before we ever left Earth." "Even the score crisis?" Admiral Thexey asked. "Especially the score crisis," Kim Nari said. "We identified them as the primary competitive threat in this region before we arrived. Eliminating them was always part of our market entry strategy." Lee Dong pulled up financial charts showing human economic projections. "The Score Empire was actually very helpful for our purposes. Their aggression gave you a reason to accept our assistance and overlook the implications of our partnership terms. You used our fear to manipulate us," Veltar said, finally understanding the full scope of what had happened. "We provided solutions to your problems," Park Hyun corrected. "The fact that we also benefited from those solutions is simply good business practice." A new human entered the room. Park Hyun gestured to him with obvious respect. "I would like you to meet Yun Soo, our new Species Relations Manager. He will be coordinating the next phase of our expansion." Yun Soo was younger than the other humans, but he carried himself with the same quiet confidence they all displayed. "Thank you, Park Hyun," he said, stepping forward to address the aliens. "We understand that this information may be disturbing," Yun Soo said in a gentle tone. "Change is always difficult even when it is beneficial. My role is to help you adapt to your new positions in our organizational structure." "New positions?" Several aliens asked at once. Yes, Yunsu replied, activating yet another presentation. The integration phase is now complete. It is time to formalize the hierarchy that has naturally developed over the past year. The display showed an organizational chart that looked like something from a corporate handbook. At the top were human executives and managers. Below them were alien specialists and administrators. At the bottom were general population groups labeled as resource contributors and service providers. This structure reflects the natural capabilities and roles that each species is best suited for, Yunsu explained. Humans excel at strategic planning, resource management, and operational coordination. Other species have different strengths that complement our abilities. Representative Mordak of the Crystal Collective studied the chart with interest rather than alarm. What would our role be in this structure? The Crystal Collective would serve as information processing specialists, Yunsu replied. Your natural computational abilities make you ideal for data analysis and quality control functions. And the mining consortium? Asked Representative Quilex. Resource extraction coordination, naturally, Yunsu said. You would continue doing what you do best, but with improved efficiency through human management oversight. One by one, he explained how each species would fit into the new hierarchy. The descriptions made it sound like a promotion rather than subjugation. Dr. Quinal was designated as a research and development advisor. Admiral Thexy became a security implementation specialist. Veltar was offered a position as cultural transition facilitator. What if we refuse? Veltar asked. Park Hyun looked genuinely confused by the question. Refuse what? Better jobs? Improved living conditions? More efficient systems? What if we want to maintain our independence? Veltar clarified. You are free to try, Park Hyun replied. But independence from what? Your economies are integrated with ours. Your technology depends on our support. Your security relies on our systems. Li Dong consulted his tablet. According to our analysis, attempting to return to pre-integration systems would result in economic collapse within 6 weeks, technological failure within 2 weeks, and social chaos within days. But the choice is yours, Kim Nari added. We do not force anyone to participate in our organizational structure. Admiral Thexy stood up, his scales cycling through colors that showed deep internal conflict. And if we choose to fight? If we decide we would rather die free than live as your subordinates? The humans exchanged glances before Park Hyun answered. Admiral, with respect, you would not be fighting for freedom. You would be fighting to return to a less efficient, less prosperous, less secure way of life. But it would be our way of life? Admiral Thexy insisted. Would it? Choi Ara asked gently. Your current military uses our weapons, our communication systems, our tactical software. Your economy runs on our trade networks and financial systems. Your government operates with our administrative tools and legal frameworks. What you call your way of life has not existed for months, Park Hyun pointed out. We are not taking it away from you. It is already gone. The truth of this statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. The Federation had been so thoroughly integrated with human systems that returning to their old ways was no longer possible. This is not conquest, Yunsu said softly.